Hey there, and welcome to the Traveling Homesteader and Gyroscope Farm. I'm Kathy, and today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. On one of the YouTube channels that I follow, they have a kind of a fun segment about cooking. And so, since we talked about, food storage and doing things on a budget, and things are kind of sideways, I thought I'd just show you guys my own quiche, or it's actually a frittata since I don't have a crust that goes with it. So today you may see that I have just a series of ingredients, and today, simply put, I'm going to show you my throw it together frittata. And right now I have my stove already preheat to 425, and all I do, literally dump them in the pot and mix it together. In this particular frittata, I do have two types of cheese, about a cup, just over a cup of cheddar that's a sharp cheddar, and then I have a mozzarella, again another cup, and I like to have a little extra cheese sometimes, and for a little extra flavor I do add just this small size can of jalapenos with the juices. So all the juices go in together, and that gives it a nice flavor. Now, then I have just a small can of olives. I was debating whether or not to put another can in for a little extra, but since I have so much, I thought this will do. So again, dump it in, and I see that there's a stem from the processing, so I'll just put that in. I'll take it out of my pot. But then I have some scallions. If you don't have scallions, you can certainly use a yellow or a white onion. I actually sometimes like to use red onions, just for a little different flavor. But again, you can use what you have. So that's kind of what's nice about this, is you can kind of put things together and just go. So with this easy way of doing things, you just cut it and dump it. It ends up being way nice. And sometimes I like to have a bit of color, so that's why you'll notice the yellow cheese, the green onions, the red peppers. If you want to use a variety of peppers, you can use some red peppers, some yellow peppers, there's some nice colored peppers out right now. And then I also, in this particular batch, I've already sauteed a pound of sausage. And this is just regular sausage. When I went to the store the other day, I kind of forgot that there's actually a variety of styles of sausage. And so this is just mild sausage. I happen to like that versus the breakfast sausage or maple sausage. I got used to this, and it ends up being really nice. So again, I just dump this in, and you can see there's still some oil or grease from the when I cooked it, and that's just fine. And then this I will mix together. I'll mix it together at first, so it's kind of all evenly distributed. Now you're gonna say, but Kathy, this isn't, there's no eggs in it. How are we gonna do this? So I stir this up now so that I can have a nice distribution of my what I call meat, or the mix of stuff that I put in there, and then I'll add the eggs. Now in this case, you will notice I added a lot of stuff, and that's because I'm doing 24 eggs. And you're like, you're gonna have a heart attack, Kathy. That's like insane. But what I'm doing is I am going to be putting in 24 eggs, because I'm going to actually have this for breakfasts for up to 2 weeks. So what I'm going to do is actually use this in my meal preparation. So as I do this, I'm going to just take my eggs, crack them, put it right in, and I will put 24 eggs in the end in this pot, and I'll mix it all together. But I do a large batch like this so I can have a couple of options. One, I can have a full-size quiche in a round pan. I can actually do up to 2 of those, or I can do it in a rectangular pan and have that be like for a Sunday brunch if I want to bring it to that. Or I can do this individual size in like muffin pans or muffin size portions. And so I will more than likely put this in a in a few round pie plates and cook it for an hour. And then once it's cooked, I will make sure, and you gotta watch for this, I got a little shell in there. So make sure you find the shell so that you don't have that come back in there when you eat it. But I will, if I do this in a pie plate, I will cut it down after it's cooled so that I can then portion it out and put it in the freezer to have when I want to grab it. Because sometimes I want to do breakfasts on the go, and that's just easy peasy to take out the night before, let it thaw, and walk out the door if I'm in a rush the next morning. So when I do this, as you can see, I'm just literally one by one putting in the eggs. Then the last ingredient that I will put in, once I have all the eggs, is yogurt. And I put in this case, I'll be putting in for a large batch like this, with 2 dozen eggs, I will put 2 cups of Greek yogurt. And I happen to get Zoe this time around. You could get any Greek yogurt, and that is my little secret to having a really nice, dense, like custard of the quiche or frittata that you're doing. Okay, so now that I have all the eggs in here, I'm going to start stirring them up with the rest of my mixture. As you can see in here, it's kind of nice and colorful. And I will, sometimes when there's space, just take a nice beating to it. And by whipping it up nice and kind of frothy, it helps it get some air. And just when you, it just ends up being nice and light, but also with the yogurt, like I mentioned, create some density to it. And I'll be adding that in just a minute. Now, too, the other reason why I chose to do this now is because I was able to get most of this stuff on sale. So that's what makes this really nice and budget friendly right now. It ends up being just over $15 for 2 dozen eggs, 2 cups of yogurt, 2 cups of different cheeses, the onions, the peppers, the black olives, and the container of jalapenos. Now, with that in mind, if I'm able to get at minimum 10 servings out of this, that brings my total price per meal or per serving of this item at $1.77. So that's part of why I do this, is because I want to make sure that my money can go the farthest that it can. And depending on how you look at my eggs, I got actually 4 dozen eggs total this week. 2 were 97 cents a dozen. The other 2 I got for free. 2 dozen that were free. And I was able to do that because of sales that were going on at my local store. So you can either have it be $15.84 as my total, $15.84, $15.24 as my total, or you can take about $2 off that, depending on which dozen eggs you want to say that I used. So with that in mind, now that I've mixed in the eggs and the other contents of my quiche, I'm going to add finally my yogurt. So my 2 cups of Greek yogurt I have here, and by adding this, it does create a certain amount of moisture and density that you won't get otherwise. Now this is, some recipes you'll find that they'll add milk. So this is instead of milk. If you want to add milk, that's an added ingredient, that's fine. It will make it a little bit looser, and it will have it extend it a little bit. Oops, got a drip. It will extend your ingredients a little bit, so that's really up to you. In this case, I probably wouldn't put much more than 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of milk to this whole contents if you choose to do that. But with this, I'll come back to my fork and kind of beat in the yogurt. And again, you want to make sure that all the ingredients are evenly distributed. And so in doing this, you can kind of beat it up you can get your regressions out. Make sure that if you have issues with somebody this week, this is the one to do. And just beat it. Just get it going. So it ends up being kind of nice and fluffy. And now what I'm going to do next is put it in a pan, and I'll show you what it looks like going into the oven. Before I put my quiche in the pan, I actually like to spray it with a certain, it could be any spray oil that you like. Some people like olive oil. This one happens to be coconut oil. So you spray it really nice and well. Spray both pans. Now you do this in this case because there is no crust. So if you're gluten-free, works out well. If you want to add a crust, you're more than welcome to, but again, it ends up being more money. But the next thing I do is I stir it up again, my mixture, since it may have settled. But then I just try to take a spoon and evenly distribute it between the two pans that I have. And once this is all set up, I'll just put it right in the oven for 50 minutes, and then I'll check it. And usually I let it cook an extra 10 minutes at a time beyond that. Sometimes I find that it, depending on the heat of the oven, it may take up to an hour and 20 minutes to cook, but it shouldn't be much longer. So as we do this, remember that this is a good opportunity to do a little meal planning, budgeting, and kind of planning how you want to see your food. Now, we mentioned in my last video about gardening. Now, this has several great items that you can grow in your own garden. Peppers, onions, you can even add tomatoes. Even if you choose to grow your own meat, you know, sausage or ham could be a great item in these. And even cheese. If you get the yen to make cheese, making cheese is really kind of fun and easy to make. I took a class on that, and it got me all excited about making cheese. So take this opportunity to look at your food, and even the eggs. You can have chickens in your backyard and have your own eggs. So those things can help reduce the costs, or at least know where your food is coming from, so you can have an opportunity to kind of gauge what you actually need when you go to the grocery store. So it looks like I have a little bit extra that I can actually get more out of this batch than I expected. So that's a bonus. And so I'm going to actually put in a third batch. It's probably going to be about half the amount of my other two, but that is okay. It still gets me a couple extra servings that I didn't expect. So here are the 3 frittatas that I've finished. And as you can see from the 50 minutes that it's been in the oven, clearly it's kind of cooked. But if you ever are not sure, a little test is to take a knife or something like it and essentially go to the middle of your quiche or cake. And as long as it comes out clean, it's cooked, which is a handy dandy good thing to have. So these are all cooked, which is a good thing. And they actually have been sitting resting for a little bit, so they've fallen. While they were cooking, they rose a little bit and then have now fallen. And that's a perfect thing for them to do. So at this point, we're going to be taking these, dividing them up into pie-sized pieces. I'm really kind of excited that these turned out so well. So as you can see, this is the better looking of the 3. But the others are actually pretty good too, despite their kind of little darker color. But now that we have these, I'll just simply cut them into portions so that I can have them later on to have with for breakfasts or for lunches, however I kind of feel like it. Now, this being the third one, this was, as you might remember, the smaller portions of the others. I will make these into half-size pieces, but I shouldn't say half-size pieces. So they will be, I will portion this out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces, or 8 portions. But this, because it's a little bit smaller pan, I may end up having 2 of these as, like 2 pieces as a portion. But either way, It's still good amount of protein with the cheese and the eggs and the sausage that's in it. And I'm really excited at how these turned out. Sometimes these quiches can be a little bit of a who knows what might happen. But as you can see, they ended up turning out still nice piping hot right from the oven. So this is going to cool off for a little while before I actually go and put them in the oven or put them in the freezer. But they're rather tasty, and I'm just excited to have a whole batch set up so that I can have breakfast on the go. I don't know about you guys, but mornings can sometimes be a rush, and sometimes you get delayed, and I don't like getting up in the morning. So being able to grab this on the go and just be able to just say, hey, I'll just eat on the way in the car is really rather easy. And it's nice to have something, as I call, solid and good for you. And so remember that with this particular episode, while yes, you can get this all at the store, and as I did, but you can also plan to have this through your own homesteading or own garden. You can have your own eggs, you know, and they're really having your own eggs with fresh, with your own chickens. Actually, you end up having lower cholesterol eggs than from store-bought. And you know exactly how your chickens are raised. That they have good green grass, they have good food, they can go out and get the bugs. And you'll often see that an egg yolk from a chicken raised in a backyard has a yellower or orangey yolk, more orange yolk than what you see in the store. So if you ever find that your yolks are darker and your whites are a little bit thicker, it's an egg that came from a fresh chicken. It's a fresh egg. So you can have your fresh eggs, which are great. And then if you decide to grow your own food, your own garden, from what's in here, you can grow your own peppers, your own onions. You can even have your own peppers. I mean, like 2 different types of peppers. You can have your jalapeno peppers. You can have your bell peppers. You can even have a whole different variety of peppers that you may not even think about if you go just to a regular store. So today we've actually talked about not only cooking, but finances, gardening, and planning out how you're going to do your year based on what you're going to do, and some meal planning. So that's kind of how I see self-reliance in a nutshell, is that it all comes down to one dish. Self-reliance is an opportunity for you to be able to put all things that you're learning into one small piece and knowing how good you can have it. Now, self-reliance could mean you being on a farm, or it could mean living in a space that you can grow. Maybe you have an apartment with a great patio. You can grow some plants on that patio. Maybe you can go to a farmer's market and get completely fresh eggs from the farmer that grew it or raised those chickens. So this is where self-reliance and homesteading come to kind of a point. You don't have to have it all at one space, but you can have all the resources at your fingertips. So with that in mind, if you've enjoyed this video and other videos that we've had, hit the subscribe button. Don't hesitate to leave a message. We always like to have people kind of posting how they are frugal or doing homesteading or being self-reliant in different ways. So come on over, check out gyroscopefarm.com and subscribe to this Traveling Homesteader if you haven't already. And thank you so much for stopping by. It's always good to have you come back.